Welcome to the IVM Podcast Network.
You're listening to the Cricketwallah Chronicles with Ayaz Memon. Hi, this is Pooja from the Fan Garage, and you're listening to the Cricketwallah Chronicles with Ayaz. We've seen the stupendous success of IPL in India, and yet again there's reams and reams, and one can talk about the influence it's had on the general sporting fabric in the country. We've seen several IPL-inspired, IPL-style leagues take place in other sports. We've seen sports like Kabaddi come into the front pages. Would this effect have been just the same if IPL was not such a big success?
Certainly not. And let me give you an example. For instance, there was the IPL and there was the ICL,
yes,
the Indian Cricket League.
Yeah.
That league never took off for various reasons.
For various reasons, and we've discussed that on the show.
And the biggest was no fan engagement, no affiliation that fans felt, no kind of nexus.
Yeah.
While the IPL, the engagement with people has been stupendous from season one.
Yeah.
And that's become a kind of a model for other sports or other sports disciplines to follow, to copy, to in toto or improvise on it.
Yeah.
And I think there has been a certain kind of, and I'm talking in the Indian context, there's been a sense of expectation about sports becoming big in India for a long while.
Yeah.
Earlier there used to be always the lament that, we're a country of 1 billion and never one champion. We used to have hockey champions.
Yeah.
We've had the isolated athletic champion.
Or tennis champion.
Yeah. Otherwise, you've had successes in cricket, and therefore it became the biggest sport.
Yeah.
But for a discipline to kind of become so large as to spread its influence across other sports was the IPL, because it triggered off. Not just the expectation was there, it triggered off ideas of how these expectations could be met.
Yeah.
Now, since the IPL has come, it's been only 9 years. Whether for the other sports the expectations have been met or not met, or in the process of being met, is a matter of detailing and debating. But IPL was certainly the trigger. The massive success of the IPL, what it showed is there are ways in which to engage fans.
Yeah.
And therefore, the embellishments, the
innovations, the cheerleaders,
hoopla, the brouhaha around it, and how to do it, the marketing of the sport.
Correct.
The other, an equally important dimension, and which I think is actually the one which is going to grow further, is how to commercially exploit the economy to make or sustain a sport. So say a sport like Kabaddi, which had become moribund. It was almost in a comatose situation. Not in the playing of the sport or the tournaments, and Kabaddi tournaments would draw huge crowds wherever they were played.
In their local sort of host venues.
Correct.
Yeah.
It was hardly ever telecast.
Well, yeah.
Local audiences would see it. The flavor, it's got a very earthy flavor.
The media wouldn't generally cover it.
It's a very Indian sport.
Yes, absolutely.
It's a very exciting sport.
Yeah.
But all of this has come into play after people who run Kabaddi, or at least channels which decided, like Star Sports, decided to show Kabaddi and exploit Kabaddi. They had to show the Indianness of the sport, and therefore also go and show that just because it is Indian and in a sense very earthy, it doesn't mean it's not financially viable.
Yeah.
In fact, if you consider all the leagues that are being played in India after the IPL, the Kabaddi League is perhaps the most productive in terms of financial rewards.
Absolutely, to the point that in year 2 itself, they announced 2 seasons, and there's already talks of it being an extended season next year.
Pooja, so I'm just going back to what I said earlier, the expectation of people, fans, sports fans in India, that, something should happen.
Yeah.
We were on the threshold of breaking free into absorbing other sports. And how we've taken up to Kabaddi is an example of that.
Yeah.
Indian audiences. Because when we talked earlier of sports, if you ask people what were the 5 or 6 major sports you could think of, they would say cricket first, it would be hockey, it would be tennis, it would be football.
And badminton to some extent.
Badminton to an extent.
Yeah.
But Kabaddi wouldn't feature.
Absolutely.
It was not in our consciousness.
Right.
The Kabaddi League has brought it not just into our consciousness, but it has also made it financially viable. It's invited people to participate in it as spectators, as promoters,
As stakeholders. Yeah.
and obviously it's a whole world of players who are going to benefit from it.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
it's created its own world, its own ecosystem, and it's going to thrive. On a return on investment kind of thing, it might even match the IPL.
Or better.
Or better.
Yeah, I mean, clearly it's, for sponsors and brands, it's entry at a much lower price point and it's far more engagement.
Correct. So the point is, the appeal of Kabaddi apart,
Yeah.
the IPL showed the path that these are the ways in which you can engage fans, in which you should telecast to keep the fans engaged, bring in the high-profile promoters, bring in razzmatazz, bring in, glamour into a sport.
Clearly it brought the associations and brand marketers and consultants onto the, sort of drawing board.
Make it viable on television as a spectacle.
Yeah.
And also then go out and exploit it commercially from the market.
Yeah, I mean, just think about it. You have today a league in football, in hockey, in tennis, in cricket, tennis. You have 2 leagues.
Yes.
The Champions Tennis League and the International Premier Tennis League.
Badminton League.
We've
We've had.
Yeah, there's been the Kabaddi League, of course, 2 seasons of it.
The Pro Wrestling League.
Yeah, the Pro Wrestling League. There's regional leagues in snooker, in billiards.
So now the league system, in a sense, it used to exist earlier. Just to kind of give you an idea, in Mumbai, you'll have a tennis ball cricket league.
Yeah.
And it may be defined by locality.
Yeah.
It may be a Thane league. It may be a Andheri Warsaw league. It may be a South Mumbai league. The league format idea borrowed from the IPL, and then teams sold out to various local franchises.
Yeah, absolutely.
And who then either supported themselves by putting their own money, or they go out locally and collect funds.
Correct.
From advertisers or sponsors or whatever for that small league.
Yeah.
So I'm saying that the impact of the IPL has been phenomenal. The success of the IPL is actually its impact, because it just opened up new avenues of thinking of how to not just play sport or run a tournament, but also how to make it financially feasible, so that, there's always a pipeline of money coming into the sport, and therefore let it grow bigger and better and better.
Absolutely. And yet again, there's talks of sports like table tennis.
Which is also wanting to get a league.
Volleyball, golf. Yes. I mean, can you imagine having a golf league?
Correct.
It's certainly like the innovations that you bring about into a sport. Similarly, as we've discussed, ODI, how it changed sort of Test cricket, T20 changed ODI, and the need to keep bringing in spectators and viewers.
So I think, Pooja, what's happened is that the IPL became a shining example of it set up a template.
Yeah, a ready template actually.
It set up a template which was a breakthrough template in the Indian context, certainly, because it allowed everybody else. Why do you want to reinvent the wheel? I follow what IPL has done.
Yeah.
And therefore, if I do similar practices, there is a chance that I can also be successful.
Yeah.
As successful, less successful, more
is relative.
Is relative.
Yeah.
But these were the challenges that all other disciplines in India were facing.
Right.
So, for instance, Kabaddi, how do you get back into national consciousness? Or how do you raise it, not get back, but how do you raise it to national consciousness? Kabaddi was a sport that I followed and covered at the Asian Games in 1990.
Wow. Yeah.
When there was only India, Pakistan, China, Bangladesh and Sri Lanka. And of course, it never kind of spread its, scope beyond the subcontinent. China was, and therefore it got out of the Olympic system.
Yeah.
Had Kabaddi been supported then, in terms of profiling, made bigger, because it's a sport that anybody can play.
Yeah.
Cricket is more difficult for players in Japan and China to absorb and play because it's highly technical, it's highly nuanced.
Yeah.
Kabaddi is not like that.
Right.
At the very top level, the nuances might come in, but essentially it's about stamina, survival.
Correct.
The skills are
quick
easy
thinking
to
and agility.
and easy to understand.
Yeah.
Now it's coming back, and now there's a push coming back again for promoting Kabaddi as an Olympic sport.
Oh, right.
And there are takers for it from other countries, whether it's Latin America or whether it's from Asia or from South Asia, because it's not a sport that it doesn't disrupt you culturally. It's like, when you want to run, if you have to run, suppose you want to introduce 5,000 meter race somewhere, it's not disruptive culturally.
Yeah.
It may be taxing in terms of stamina and training methods and
at
stuff
an individual
like that.
level. Yeah.
Cricket has a problem.
Right.
Because it's so technical in its whole structure.
Yeah.
But that apart, so suddenly Kabaddi has got the priority which it never got since 1990, and I think it was a brainwave to give that kind of profiling of Kabaddi or re-energize, because it's now becoming willy-nilly, not gradually but very quickly, a very I think it'll become a very powerful global sport which will get the attention, and especially with India finding its place in the global scheme of things in various other aspects.
Right.
So Kabaddi is going to become almost like a make in India success.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And it's a derivative of the league which has brought it there into its position. Suppose there was no Kabaddi league, it would still be struggling with its federation.
Absolutely.
The tournaments will be ultra-local rather than national
Yeah.
or international.
No big sponsors, no fancy
No
telecasts.
big sponsors.
Yeah.
And the IPL model was you get high-profile people attached to it,
Yes.
associated with it. The people with money will migrate to it because they also looking at some kind of return on investment,
Yes.
whether it's tangible or intangible.
Yeah, and sponsors are looking at newer ways to engage more fans, more consumers, and clearly sport other than cricket come at lower price points.
And the IPL breakthrough was because we had never seen anything like this or experienced anything like this earlier.
Yeah.
The ICL...
City-based franchises, home and away formats.
City and big business based.
Yeah, of course.
And including film stars. So
Yeah,
that was
so
the
that's at an
razzmatazz.
ownership level.
At an ownership level.
Yeah.
Then the flavor of the tournament, how to execute the tournament itself,
Yeah.
how to then translate or transmit that flavor to make for really exciting television viewing.
Yeah,
I think that's the fundamental...
by tweaking rules and formats slightly to make it more spectator friendly.
Correct. Exactly.
Yes.
And therefore, all the other sports are now following. Not all of them have been successful. There have been ups and downs.
Yeah.
The Indian Badminton League got off to a roaring start.
Absolutely.
And that's because there's a badminton wave in our country.
Yes,
in
led
India.
by none other than Saina.
And a whole clutch, bunch of
other
talented
youngsters.
young players. But, because I don't think that the structure of the league was made robust enough. It was just kind of executed, in a bit of a haste without working at the back end. So the next year, it didn't happen.
Yeah.
The issues of making administration robust, issues of governance, issues of ensuring that there is enough supply of money, not just talent, to sustain a tournament or a league more particularly, is paramount. If you don't have those, systems in place, you're going to have a problem. I'll give you an example again. So, the Indian Hockey League was earlier, or the Hockey India League was earlier the Indian Hockey League.
Right.
It was tried 10 years back.
Yes.
It didn't succeed, despite the best efforts of, the television channel, ESPN then. I feel that not enough razzmatazz was around it, which television should have done. They were perhaps a little more orthodox
early days
in their thinking. Yeah. The other was, the economy was perhaps not as ripe. Remember, the IPL came in 2008. Of course, the global meltdown happened soon after that, but the Indian economy was not as
severely hit.
Or perhaps not hit at all in that sense. At a macro level, yes.
Yeah, we were cushioned to a large
otherwise,
extent.
There was a lot of money in the Indian economy, which I think the IPL people, and especially cricket administrators, they have a knack of squeezing the last buck out of the system. So they did it so successfully. Where other sports are concerned, therefore managerial expertise also comes in. Administrative expertise also comes in. Kabaddi has been able to do it successfully. Badminton couldn't do it. There have been issues with badminton.
Also, about bringing in international talent to play alongside and against our Indian players.
All that is interlinked.
Yeah.
You see, international talent will come if you've got enough to give them in terms of profile, in terms of money, and in terms of validity.
Yeah.
If you bring them in and they're going to run foul of their international body or their national body, then they'll be reluctant. Or if they're still willing to come, then you have to pay a price which is so high that it'll blow the economies out of shape of the sport.
Similarly, in the ISL, we saw, the first season was relatively older players, has-beens, but the second season had a more current crop of players.
Correct.
So they upped the game in that sense.
The ISL is work in progress.
Yeah.
And we'll have to wait and see how 2017 is supposed to be kind of a path-breaking year.
Yeah, when the two leagues merge for football in India.
So the leagues, we'll obviously talk about it a little more as to how they've helped and what other leagues need to do, other sports need to do to be of value in the Indian context. But certainly, to my mind, the IPL was the catharsis. It was the moment of catharsis.
Yeah. That and more, the biggest question that remains to be answered, will all of this sporting revolution ultimately make India a sporting nation? We'll take a short break and come right back.
Did you know that some termites in Africa have a pleasantly minty flavor?
Did you know that India's largest music festival was in a way conceptualized in Estonia?
Did you know that the awesomest chips in the world are found only inside US prisons?
Hello, I'm Chuck.
I'm Sriket.
And I'm Naren.
And together we are
Simplified,
a podcast that helps you appear smarter to an audience that knows no different.
or give you some stuff to talk about at parties.
We are ultra crepidarians.
And if you don't know what that means,
Then tune into Simplified with a B on iTunes, Audioboom, or your favorite podcasting app. Episodes out every fortnight.
Hi, this is Pooja, and you're listening to the Cricketwallah Chronicles with Ayaz. We're sitting here discussing the influence that the IPL has had on sport and cricket and sport in general in India. We've talked about the various leagues that mushroomed, IPL-style, IPL-inspired leagues that mushroomed across different sports. And yet again, I ask, where is all of this leading? Is it going to actually make India a sporting nation? Are we going to actually start winning more medals at the Olympics someday?
Difficult question to answer, but it's a start. We don't know where it will go.
Surely.
Hopefully it will go in the right direction. But imagine a situation where these things didn't exist. Then you were left with the federations who were, as I mentioned earlier, there was a lot of internecine fighting.
They were doing what they were doing or not doing. Yeah.
Or they were at odds with the players themselves or the talent. And it's a truism that all the most of the major success you've had in sports in India outside of cricket has been self-driven.
Absolutely, yeah.
The athletes, the shooters, the wrestlers,
The tennis players.
It's more their own effort and their own resourcefulness which helped them get where they are. Rather than the federation. I'm not blaming the federations in the sense that they didn't do anything, but they didn't do enough.
Yeah.
Now the league has opened up the eyes of even the people who run federations, and they're seeing this as an opportunity for them.
Because, there's this whole big momentum that it's brought sports to the front pages.
A sense of importance. Yes, it's brought sports to the front pages.
Yeah.
The idea is the leagues are also creating stars.
Yes.
Because of the heightened focus, the way television
The
presents
broadcast,
them, the broadcast, the
in-stadium
telecast.
following, digital and social media
Absolutely.
today. Yeah.
And therefore, when you have stars, I always maintain that hockey in India suffered because you just lost the stars. It's a game which is difficult to, in that sense, to create stars on the field of play because it's so fast-paced.
Yeah.
The
Yes.
camera doesn't focus enough.
Absolutely.
So you have to be, you have to apply your mind, come up with brainwaves to make those players into stars and therefore young people to emulate.
Yeah.
I think the league format, because of the fan engagement, which is primary or has primacy, looks at creating heroes of talent. This is what is happening even in Kabaddi. They're creating stars out of the Kabaddi players. Names who you couldn't think of are now kids are talking about, those names.
Absolutely.
Or hockey
Yeah.
or football. So the IPL, I think, certainly came in at a time when I think India was looking, or the Indian, the people in India. Perhaps there was also the climate, the economic climate. Why perhaps? Most certainly. Which was ready to support. And look, India has got a very massive young population.
Yeah.
65%, 66%, all under the age of 35.
Correct.
There's a great sense of pride which sports affords if you excel a country.
Yeah.
A nation thrives on successes in sport. In the past, our thinking was not like that. Now, we want our sports persons to go out there, play and win, or at least do well.
Yeah.
That is also impacting the people in sports. They're saying, no, we have to go out and do well. But how do you do well unless you have the resources, the wherewithal, the attention,
The sponsors, the
sponsors,
backing.
the support systems in place?
Yeah.
The leagues are making those available to whatever extent. If you start comparing wrestling with cricket or kabaddi with cricket, obviously there is no comparison in terms of volume of resources available, or in literal terms how much money or what facilities.
Yeah.
But on a ratio basis, things have improved dramatically. So let me give you an example. A top-notch cricketer from the IPL may say earn 10 crore, maybe 10 crore.
Yeah.
That's not the kind of money any kabaddi player will earn, or a hockey player, or a footballer, or a badminton player, or even a tennis player. But a kabaddi player who used to live on maybe 4, 5, 6,000 rupee jobs, and the occasional tournaments with prize money which may be 1 lakh or 2 lakh and you get a share of it. Now they're getting contracts worth 60, 70 lakhs a year.
Absolutely. So earlier
to play for 2 months.
Yeah, and earlier the lament was always that cricket took away, a bulk of the sponsor pie. The sponsorship pie. But clearly now there are other sponsors coming into sports and, supporting it year after year, season after season.
Absolutely, Pooja. So how it works is, if I'm passionate about sports, or I see return on investment as a business in sport, what do? The biggest sport in India is cricket, but the entry level to go and sponsor cricket is very high.
Very intimidating, yeah.
So what do? Earlier, I had very little option. I wouldn't go to any other sport because nothing of it was available.
Correct.
It was not even structured well.
Yeah.
So who do I go and deal with?
Absolutely.
What do I do?
Yeah.
So I kept back. I held myself back. I never put in the money. Now, if I can afford to spend just 2 crore and not 200 crore,
Yeah.
I have an option.
Absolutely.
I can either buy a kabaddi team or support it as a sponsor or a badminton team and so on and so forth.
Yes.
So money will come in different volumes at different levels. I think the state of the economy is a big influence.
Yeah.
But not just that, it's also how the administration therefore exploits the resources available. How does it go and sell itself, market itself? How does it create more opportunities for creating revenue streams, so to speak? I'll just give you an example from the past, and I remember this distinctly because it's never left me.
Yeah.
I'm talking of the 80s, and I was in the office of Professional Management Group, which was Sunil Gavaskar's company.
Yeah.
Because I knew his partner and, of course, Sunil well, Sumit Shah. And they had got a sponsor for the Indian hockey team. And in those days, they got a sponsorship of 25 lakh, which was huge money.
Absolutely. And for
Huge.
hockey, yeah.
For hockey.
Yeah.
For the national team. For whatever period of time, I can't remember now.
Yes.
The hockey officials came there from IHF.
Yeah.
And believe it or not, the first thing that they discussed amongst themselves is, let us go and make clothes for ourselves. That means for themselves.
Yeah.
The federation people, the officials. They didn't care about the players. Or about the hockey body. And therefore, how do you expect the sport to come alive?
Absolutely.
Or grow?
Yeah.
If that mindset does not change, the league format is not going to help you beyond a point.
Absolutely.
Are
yeah.
you getting what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
So while the IPL is a great example, unless the federation starts opening up its mind and seeing their job as to support the sport, make it grow in terms of money, in terms of talent. You may get money for 2 years, 3 years. If you don't create talent pools, if you don't have talent hunts, if you don't have a pipeline of regular talent coming in, it'll dry up.
Yes.
The sport will dry up.
And today,
It'll
actually,
die.
talent is not scared to take up sports as a career.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So talent is available. There are more and more people wanting to get into sports because it's offering them, as you mentioned, livelihood, recognition, identity, obviously glamour.
Yes.
And therefore, when you asked me the question, are we ever going to become a sporting nation? Yes, but it's not going to happen overnight.
Sure.
When China participated in the Olympics post the Second World War and the Olympics, and they didn't do well at all, they decided that they're going to keep away from international sport till they were very good, what they call behind the bamboo curtain.
Yeah.
And they put their, the administrators in the country put their noses to the grind. And when the bamboo curtain was lifted, they came with a whole swarm of badminton and table tennis players who shocked the world.
Absolutely.
And they continue to shock the world.
Yeah. The most dominant force.
Because what they did was, they did what I call is, to use, Sensex jargon or stock exchange jargon, they did volume trading. They just increased the volume of players available.
Yeah.
So, table tennis camps would have tens of thousands of people.
They basically did a China on table tennis.
And
as
badminton.
China has done in the world of manufacturing today.
So, we've got the advantage of population.
Yeah.
We need to make sure that if you want a pyramidal structure, you want people at the top to be the elite sports persons.
Yes.
But you need the bottom base, big enough to provide you those. If your base is narrow, you can't reach very high. It'll topple over.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying? So, I think if you want to become a sporting nation, you have to develop the base for all sports larger than 10 times larger than what it was, maybe 100 times larger. So if you had, say, 10,000 kabaddi players across the country, you need to get 100,000 for you to remain and become big champions, or hockey players or badminton players. It's happening.
Yeah.
But for that base to expand exponentially, it's not the job of only the promoter who might, or the franchise owner who might come and buy. It's the federation, the people who run the sport, those who run the leagues, to ensure that their primary focus is on the league, not just on making money. To develop talent, you have to be financially viable.
Yeah.
You can't be insolvent, otherwise you'll fold up and go. But you also have to ensure that all systems and processes are put in place which will afford succor to the sport. If that doesn't happen, then I'm afraid it'll be like a house of cards.
I agree completely there, Ayaz. But ultimately, leagues are about athletes and about fandom.
Correct.
Right? And it's about the host city or the host franchise having a loyal fan following.
Yeah.
And as the West has clearly shown us, leagues are long drawn out. They are played. They are weekend events typically, and they sort of run for 7 to 8 months. And therefore they've caught you for a good part of the year.
Yeah.
Clearly, in India, calling anything a league is a misnomer because they're essentially 2 to 8 week kind of razzmatazz events, tournaments, activations at best.
No, I think you've got a point, but just to kind of give it a perspective. See, we're almost at the lowest end of the evolutionary curve in terms of growth of sport and leagues and whatever else.
Yes.
What you are talking about, the model which exists in highly developed Western economies, who may have a 4-day week or a 5-day week and spend a lot of time and money on leisure activities, on the pursuit of leisure. And I'm putting sport there because, that's what they pursue. What do you do? In India, we've still not reached that stage of money spent, consumption of time. We've got a massive population. They are going to become workforces if the economy develops.
Yes.
And till they reach a certain level of consumption and get a certain level of disposable income, they will not allocate so much money to only sport.
Right.
That's the next stage or the third stage or the fourth stage once you reach a level of maturity in the market, so to speak, the sporting market. So I don't think it's a fair comparison to say, look at how NBA and the Super Bowl works, or the Australian Football League,
or the English Premier League,
or the English Premier League.
Yeah.
So just to kind of give you a more specific example, we had the T20 World Cup in India.
Yes.
In Bombay itself, there were 5 matches of that World Cup.
Yeah.
There's time spent for going for those matches. If I'm an avid cricket lover and especially a T20 diehard fan, and I want to see every match, I'm probably burning a whole of 8,000-10,000 rupees in my pocket within the space of a month.
Yes.
In Mumbai.
Yeah.
Apart from the time that I've devoted.
And that's a huge share of wallet to expect.
Correct. And then you've got 7 matches of Mumbai Indians, who I also support, suppose.
Yeah.
To come and play.
Yes.
The tickets may not be, it can vary from $100 to 3,000, 5,000.
Or upwards, yeah.
Or upwards. But still, it's adding to my financial burden.
Right.
Is the Indian market, so to speak, ready to take that much of a burden? The number of people who can take it is still very, very narrow.
I agree, yeah.
That's really the thing. Ultimately, it's a demand and supply situation which will emerge. If I've got a lot of money, and as you mentioned, a lot of time, or not enough time, but I've got a lot of money. That's in the T20 format.
Yeah.
But I've got a lot of money, and I can create the time for myself for my leisure pursuits.
Yeah.
Then I will, by sheer demand, these leagues will become longer, bigger, and better.
Yeah.
It's a demand and supply situation, according to me.
Yeah.
But they need to be sustained well. So one of the things that I think all other leagues need to learn from the IPL, we had a lot of controversies in the IPL, of governance, of corruption. These are debilitating blows.
Well, yeah, clearly if it's shown you the way of what to do, it's also taught you what not to do, or what to be wary of.
Correct. I'll give you, for instance, we had the Pro Wrestling League last December.
Yeah.
First time wrestling league, which went through north of India, had its own challenges of how to get off the ground.
Yeah.
Then you had a situation where Sushil Kumar, the biggest name in wrestling in India, who was part of the team, one team, didn't participate at all. Maybe because of injury or whatever else. Then it's a blow.
Yeah.
Or for whatever reason. Then, administrative hiccups can happen. Or any other, badminton, it took off first year, 2013, very well. Next season, it wasn't there.
Yes.
Because there was an internal fight between players and the federation.
And federation, right.
Or the association.
Yes.
So these kind of problems are going to affect the sport.
Or in the case of the Champions Tennis League. First season they had a 6 set of cities. Next season they had a different set of cities.
Correct.
So where is the longevity in ownership, in brand building?
All these things need to be put in place.
Yes.
There will also be threats from other leagues which will want to come in, rival leagues.
Yeah.
The administration needs to be clear as to which it wants to support, if not its own self-created league. All kinds of challenges will be there. But I think fundamental to it is, you need to have a house, and the IPL is a great example even in this.
Yeah.
Unless your house is in order. The IPL is lucky to the extent that cricket is a massive sport in Bombay. It could absorb these setbacks.
Yeah.
Any other sport in India with such grave charges of corruption and, maladministration would have been knocked off. We've seen that happen with hockey.
Yeah.
The federation struggles.
Yes.
So, cricket has been lucky to the extent it's always been a very big sport, at least for the last 40 years. It's got the financial muscle to absorb setbacks, major, minor, for a short period of time, which other sports can't.
Yeah.
And therefore, these are lessons to be learned, that you don't have a robust league with great systems in place, then there's going to be an issue. So it's not just, hunky-dory looking at the bottom line and profits and saying, oh, they made 1,000 crore, we can make 100 crore.
Yeah. I mean, it's good to learn the positives and the negatives from something that's been so successful. But one really hopes that, at one level you have a new crop of, suppose, let's say 200 team owners, and there are new sponsors invested into various sports and broadcast and fans and fan loyalty. One hopes that there is a certain depth and sense of maturity that comes into us as a sporting fabric that's growing, and ultimately, of course, goes to make us a sporting nation.
That's imperative. I'll tell you, Pooja. Look, the economy moves in cycles.
Yeah.
5 years from now, we don't know what the economic cycle might be. We don't know what the global situation might be. You might be hitting a slump.
Yeah.
So what do? Are these leagues going to survive or die? So therefore, how you construct the league, how do you manage its affairs? Even the finances are important.
Absolutely.
When you go through a lean phase in the economy, are you still able to survive? The NBA and other leagues went through even the Second World War and survived.
Yeah.
Because there was the wherewithal to absorb those troughs. It's not always that you're going to be living on the crest.
Yeah.
And I think the IPL, from a business model point of view, has been a trailblazer. It's given a sense of direction. And if all things work in other sports, you will throw up players, not just players who have got livelihood, but also players of caliber, because that's a function also of, achievement and reward.
Yeah.
The players get more money if you do better.
Absolutely.
And therefore, if you do better, you will also start doing better at the international level, hopefully. And therefore, you become more and more of a sporting nation.
Absolutely. Let's hope our medal tally increases every 4 years at the Olympics. Signing off on that positive note and a sporting note, this is Pooja from the Fan Garage, signing off from the Cricketwallah Chronicles. Thanks, Ayaz. Cricketwallah Chronicles is available on iTunes, Audioboom, YouTube, the IVM Podcast app, and many other podcasting apps that you may like.
Hey man, just help me out, man. I need some podcast, man. I haven't had a fix in a week. Just need some.
Don't you worry about it. I got podcast galore for you, man. Just go to ivmpodcast.com. You can also find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Thanks, man. I'm gonna check it out.